So thank you for joining. We're really excited to present this webinar to you today. While we will show you how some of our products can make these things easier, the fact is everything we are going to show you, you can do without any of our products. And if you already have them, your life might be easier. And remember, no programmers are required for anything that we are going to be showing you. So I am joined today by Doug Morris, the founder and chief product officer here at CSI. Say hi, Doug.
Hi.
And I'm JT Fiedler. I'm the product and sales advisor here at CSI. And kind of getting a drum roll, please. And I think that is actually Doug on the drums. But Doug,
I did try out to play drums in 5th grade, and they told me I had no chance of ever doing that, apparently. The fact that I'm uncoordinated in life does not help with drums, but I would be a cool drummer. I just want to point that out. So, all right, top 5 things. Number 1, these are things that JT and I have come up with in working with a lot of different organizations. And we just sort of started to reflect on things that we think every organization really should be doing in order to stay relevant. You have to start tracking logins. We did this webinar for Asia Pacific last night, and this said website logins, and I changed it this morning because maybe it's just your member portal login and not necessarily your website. I'm not sure, but you should be tracking your logins. That's the number 1 thing that you really should be doing today. So let's talk about maybe some ways that people have done that in the past. A lot of you use Google Analytics. I was talking to a lady in Asia Pacific actually the other night. She's like, we use Google Analytics. She's like, it's great, but it's got some challenges. You got to have someone that knows how to set it up. You got to have someone that goes in and checks on it and reports on it. And I'll tell you, at CSI, every time we get a person that's always up to speed on this, they end up leaving. And so they're like, oh, great. Who's going to track the analytics? So really, when we think about this data, it's so important. Everybody at your organization should be able to see how many people are logging in. This is a leading indicator, okay? Because this is something that you can actually act on very quick. It kind of tells you, hey, are you making a difference in here with your members and whatnot? You got to track and figure out why those numbers are going up or going down. Are you posting new and fresh content? Are you giving your members or your constituents a reason to log in? Because if numbers go down, that's bad. That means people are not seeing the value in your organization. They don't have a reason to go and log in and check out what you're offering. So this is something that we think is the number 1 thing that everybody should be doing. And you got to start doing these today. We're going to show you how to do them. It's super easy. But the sooner you start, the better your trend analysis is going to be. All right, JT, are you walking us through this or am I doing this? I guess it's me. All right, here we go. It says that I'm doing this one. So you create a standalone panel in EMS. Now, if you're not on EMS, you're in 2017, no big deal. Create a multi-instance panel, and basically what you're going to do is tie that to an ID in iMIS. Randy Richter was famous for this with his ATS store. I love it. I'll give him credit for it. He would pick a record in his database before we had standalone panels that was something like ATS store. And he would put all of his multi-instance and single instance stuff that he couldn't track in a standalone panel there. And so just tie it to a given record. Pick an ID in your database that you're going to store this data for. So if you're on 2017, no big deal. You can still do this. Next up, you're going to create an IQA that counts the logins for the day. JT and I were actually working on this, and we thought, you know what, when do you count those logins? So we actually we're going to show you the IQA. It's really easy. That's going to count the logins that happened yesterday, and we're going to exclude the staff logins. Well, we're going to add them back in so we actually have something to show you. But normally you don't want to see if your staff's logging in because that counts every time they log into the staff site. So ultimately, we're going to exclude staff and create a simple thing. You're going to go in on a weekly basis, we think that's pretty good. It could be monthly. Daily might be a lot, but you want to, and we are discussing this morning, we think weekly is perfect because daily is going to have that mess up. So as you know, here in the US, right, we just had Memorial Day, right? So it's going to be, if you do daily, you might see your numbers being pretty bad on a Monday for some weird reason this week. It was a holiday. So weekly, daily, and you're going to assign someone to do that. To just go populate that panel, run the IQA, write down the numbers, populate the panel. And then most importantly, you've got to be able to show your coworkers what's happening. So you want to create charts and or dashboards for everybody to see in iMIS, because when those numbers go up, you can all celebrate. And when they go down, you can all get together and figure out what's going on at your organization. And of course, optionally, if you do have the iMIS Data Management Suite, this is super easy to do, and we'll show you how to do that. But as JT said, we're not here to sell you anything. We're just going to show you, if you have this product, how easy it is to do. Here's the panel that JT created. It's super simple. You could add a ton of stuff, but he just made a panel called logins per day. And we were tracking the day and the login count. Like I said, I would do that as a multi-instance on a given record if I was in 2017, but I don't have to worry about it today. And then this is the secret sauce, if you will. We're going to use the user data source. Next up, we are going to go and filter on last login within 0 days. JT, you forgot to update that slide. We actually have a better one there. So that filter is slightly incorrect, but we'll update that. That's going to give you everybody logged in today. And then last up is here, where your display is actually showing the previous day. So we actually, your last login that within days, I think should be -1 would be the proper one there. We made a change, like I said, this morning on that. So you're going to show the previous day, and then last login is going to be within days -1. We'll get that updated here. Once again, when we are looking at dates in iMIS, you want to, especially EMS, you want to use the get app date time and not get date. There is a setting that controls your time zone, which may be different than where your server is, especially if you're hosted by someone and or ASI. So get app date time is the way to do it. And this is a quick way to format it and remove the time, if you will. And then, of course, here is our scary trend line, right, where we can see something's going wrong. This might be a daily count, and you could say, well, you know, let's get everyone together because we have a problem on our hands.
All right. So I will go ahead and actually, before jumping into what it looks like with iDMS, I'll walk through the kind of the IQA that Doug was mentioning. So we have login tracking right here. And so once again, we're using that source of the user data business object within that IQA. And then our filters is going to be that -1 value. And then is staff no? And then that display is going to have that SQL property for you to get yesterday's date. And like Doug mentioned, if we run it, you'll notice 0 logins because it was staff. And so if we just remove that and we save and we rerun it, oh, Doug, I think it does have to be 0. You'll notice that now there
set it to 1 because it'll,
okay.
Yeah.
So now you'll see that there are now total login counts, and we would just write down the date and the number here, and we would populate it to that panel. Now, how you would do this in iDMS is we would just use iUpdate, and we will just simply go to our iDMS jobs, select that login tracking. We'll select that, and then we are going to insert this data. So we'll just select our panel source, which is that logins per day. And we will go find that logins per day. we'll do day, goes to yesterday, save, and then total logins, that is going to go to the login count, and then we'll save that as well. And so we'll schedule this to run, and so you would just give it a name, and then you'd want to schedule it. So you could kind of pick your frequency here of how often you would want this job to run and populate the panel.
All right. Thanks, JT.
Yes, and to recap, we just, once again, used that same IQA that we had. We inserted the data to the panel, and then we scheduled that job to run.
All right. We got a question there. Does that login count each person once or every time the person logs in? It is each person once on that because we're using user data. So it's going to track, say my ID is 100 and it will have the last date I logged in. If that answers your question, John. Is iDMS similar to PA Plus? We'll talk about that at the very end. No, it is not similar to PA Plus. It's very, very different. Anyway, so number two, but we'll talk about that at the end. Like I said, don't want to be that. Number two thing that we think you should be doing today is tracking member counts. This is something that iMIS is terrible at if you want to find out how many members you had last year. So the real challenge is if you don't start now, you're in trouble. So let's talk about why this is important, okay? If logins are a leading indicator, as once again, I see my login counts are going down, that's a leading indicator. Right? Then the fact is that member counts are kind of a lagging indicator. If you think about it, if you start to lose members, it's a lagging indicator. That happened yesterday. The person didn't renew. And so they're going to tell you how they're trending. Are they renewing? And if it starts to trend down, it's going to take some time to fix. As you know, in this organization, if you've lost members, it takes a while to figure out what's wrong and everything. So we like logins first, member count second. And as I said before, we want to start tracking these today, if at all possible. Okay.
Yes.
So, JT, you take this one.
Okay. Yes. So how do we actually track these member counts? So it's a similar process that we saw with the tracking logins, where we're just going to create a standalone panel, or once again, if you're on 2017, a multi-instance panel tied to a given iMIS record. Then we're going to create an IQA to track those member counts within iMIS. And then we are going to schedule someone to take a look at those numbers. So we're going to decide how often we want to assess those. And then based on that, we'd populate the panel appropriately. And then we can also create those charts and dashboards for everyone to see in iMIS. And once again, if you do have iDMS already, you can do this on a scheduled basis. But taking a quick look at the setup of things, this is going to be your standalone panel. So it's just going to be member counts by day, and then we will have the IQA. And so we're going to be using the net contact data business object. And for our filters, it really depends on what member types you're looking to track. If you only want to track maybe regular members and student members, then you would just have those listed in the filters. However, in this case, we have all of our member types because we want to have that information.
And pro tip right there, net contact data or net contact basic. Stop using net contact. It is very, very slow. It will cause all sorts of issues and timeouts. Net contact data is the way to go.
And so this is the fun display tab for tracking IQ member counts. And so it's a bit more complicated than the one that we saw with the login counts, but it is something that you can just implement into your own instance today. And so to look at those SQL functions, I'm going to pass it back over to Doug because he is the SQL guru here at CSI.
All right, so once again, we're going to use that get app date time. And you know, like to format it in some to remove the time, if you will. This was the part, this took us a little time to figure out, and this is why we wanted to share this with you. You actually have to kind of do some fun little SQL stuff for each member type. So in this case, this is our member type A. Yours obviously is probably different, but for each one of your member types, you're going to do something like this. Case when member type is A, then 1, else 0, end. So that's a real important thing for doing this. And then the final caveat is you actually want to count on the member type and then throw a little code in there so it doesn't show. So this is, we used some, we used, we needed help with this. How's that? So that's why we wanted to share it. So.
And so if we run that IQA, this is kind of what the result set would look like. It's going to pull that date and then the in real time counts for your member types. And then we can take it a step further and actually display it on a chart basis right on a dashboard in iMIS. And so if we take a look at what that actually looks like in iMIS, once again, we have the IQA for just member counts. Our sources, that's just going to be that net contact data business object like Doug mentioned. And then the filters, this is where we're going to specify who do we actually want to track. And then the fun part is the display. And so you'll notice here are all the SQL functions as well as that count for the member type. And if we run it, we'll go ahead and see that it's pulling today's date as well as what that count is actually. And so how you would do this today is we just have, once again, a standalone panel on our membership dashboard. And so member counts by day, we would just go in whenever we want, whatever frequency we think is most appropriate. And we would just add a new row with that date along with those counts for you. Now, how would this look with iDMS and scheduling this? Once again, we're just going to use that same member counts IQA. We're going to insert that data into the standalone panel that we created. And then we're going to schedule this to run. We're going to set it and forget it. We don't want any manual work to happen. So if we jump over to iDMS, we'll do iUpdate. We will go in and find the member counts. And we will simply select it. And we'll do that same thing of inserting the rows within our standalone panel. So we'll go just to the panel source. And we have a panel out there that is the member counts. And we will do day, goes to today, save, associate member type, would just go to the associate members, save. And so you would just go one by one and have these be matched up to the correct member type. And then we would just schedule this once again as a task. So we don't want to run this manually. We'll let iDMS do it for us. So very easy way to kind of implement this in your own instance today.
JT, before we go to the next one.
Yes.
Before you jump to the next one, you do want to go back to slide 10. I've updated it with the help of Matthew that we now have a correct getting login counts from the previous day, filters.
Gotcha. Okay.
So,
do you want me to do that now, or do you want me to do that?
Let's do it now to really mess people up, because I feel like we gave them bad info and this is a training webinar. So here we go real quick. We're going to jump back to slide 10, really mess up JT here. Here is the proper IQA filters for yesterday's logins. It is last login date within 1 day. Is staff? No. And then you want to also add in that last login date is less than today. So screenshot that if you like. That's the correct filters to get the total number of logins from yesterday. That's what we get for making a change with 4 minutes before our webinar.
All right.
All right, JT. Sorry about that. Let's go on to number 3, right? The third thing you should be doing today.
Yes, number 3.
Tracking inbound and outbound communications. And what you're probably thinking is, well, we kind of do that. iMIS does it automatically. But what we want to focus on here is the one-off communication with your members. The stuff that your coworkers are sending to members, donors, constituents, prospective members, and then the replies that are coming back. You got to ask yourself, are they having important conversations? And we sort of think, yeah, they are. There's a lot of one-off conversations. Our world is not just about mass emailing and tracking that JT got an email inviting him to a webinar, right? There's a lot of, you know, as I'm always yelling at people to pick up the phone at CSI, we know that email is the #1 way we communicate. So think about when you interact with an organization that does this well. So you're talking to someone and they kind of seem to know a little bit more about you than you thought. I don't know. I get this feeling like that's really weird. I like it, right? They seem to kind of know me. And I'm assuming that they're looking through the past emails and seeing stuff like this. Hey, you've asked about this before, Doug. Can I address this right now? So a top-notch customer service person is looking at my record, looking at all the back and forth I've had. And then here's the thing, right? What about staff turnover? It seems to be happening a lot. And if Bob in accounting is no longer there and he was having a back and forth with a member about maybe some past due money for an event or whatever, and Bob leaves, he retires, you know, how are you going to track that, right? How are you going to even know that that member was talking to Bob? So here's a quick way to do it. JT is going to show you how to do it.
Yes. So first thing is we're going to open the email and we're actually going to save it. A hint here is we internally use an erase me folder. So it essentially gets erased and you can delete that old thing, old files to free up space. And so it's kind of a temporary storage. Then we'll want to obviously find that record in iMIS. And we will go to the activity and we will simply populate the email activity type that we have. And we'll save that file as an attachment. And remember, just like Doug mentioned, you can save inbound and outbound emails this way. So how does that look? So if we have an email here from Lauren, we're just going to save this in iMIS. So we're going to do a file, save as. We'll make it a text-only file, and we will just name it new member orientation info. We will save that. And then if we jump over to Lauren's record and we go to the panel where the email activities are kept, we can easily add this email. So anybody on our staff can see that we had an interaction with Lauren. And so we will just go ahead, we will find that file, and we will populate it there. If we wanted to, we can also put, obviously, for email, we can put a transaction date, really whatever information is going to be most useful for you and your staff to see. And then alternatively, if you do have iEmail, you can do this as well. So that would look just launching the iEmail Cloud add-in. And then from here, we can save it as an interaction, or once again, save it as that email activity in iMIS. So then we can maybe assign someone to follow up with this email if it was sent to someone that isn't responsible for it. So then they can have that back and forth conversation history.
And that's a one click, it finds the record and automatically saves it. So yes, it saves some time, but you could encourage, if you don't have iEmail, that's fine. Go to have your staff members go through their sent items, track the important emails at the end of the day. If you do have iEmail, you can do the same thing. It's just a few less clicks. All right. So number 4 thing you should be doing today is unlocking user accounts before the members call. All right. Now let's think about this, right? Satisfied members tend to renew. They engage with you and they possibly bring in new members. That's great. What happens when someone gets locked out and they have to call headquarters to get their account unlocked? Well, that's not satisfying. Now, I've heard through the grapevine ASI is addressing that, but I think you should be addressing it today, immediately. JT, how do we do that?
Yes. So once again, everything that we have been pretty much showing is driven through that IQA. So we're going to have an IQA that's going to find those locked out user accounts. And then for each locked out user, we're going to go and pull up their user information and unlock their accounts. Now you'll want to determine how frequently do you want to do this? Do you want to do it twice a day? Do you want to do it maybe 3 times? It really is completely up to you. And once again, if you do have iDMS, iDMS can handle this automatically for you on a scheduled basis. So taking a quick look at the IQA, these are just the locked out users. And then we'll want to go to the respective user that has locked themselves out. We'll want to edit. And so if we do that, it's going to go ahead and unlock that given user. And so how does that look in iMIS? The IQA is relatively simple to set up. So if we just go into iMIS and we'll just select where that IQA lives. Doug, this is where you do some commentary.
Oh, right. Okay. So JT was fighting with ASI tech support today and needed some stuff done. And he was supposed to update the ticket and tell them, whatever you do not mess with our image during this time. Did you do that part, JT, or no?
Yes, I did.
Oh, you did. Okay. So it's totally on them that they messed up.
All right. Let's try this again.
Maybe if you triple click it, 17 clicks.
I don't know why it's doing this.
Come on, JT, you want to see this IQA? Oh, we have a great question that I'll stall while you fire around with that, JT.
Okay.
Maybe log in, log back out. Security concerns for unlocking accounts if they've been locked due to bad people attempting to gain access. Really interesting question, and I want to address that right now. If you've gone and ever dealt with a locked out account where you're locked out, normally there's a time limit to come back in. So if we think about this, and we do this with our cloud infrastructure here too, if you're stopping the person after 5 and then there's a 1 hour or a 4-hour wait, they're only getting a chance to try 5 different passwords let's just call it every hour. that's going to not work, right? That's going to slow them down. It's a little bit, this is Doug talking now. It's a little bit like they always talk about locking your car. The car thief is going to go ahead and take the unlocked cars instead. So if they can try as many passwords as they want and without it ever being locked, they're going to get in. But if it locks them out, and then it's another hour or 30 minutes even to unlock, and then they only get 5 more, that's going to take a long time to go ahead and get in. JT, it seems like you're slowly getting there, huh?
Slowly but surely, it seems like.
I don't see it working anything. Is it only when you're not showing iMIS that it's working?
Pretty much, it works on my other screen.
All right, open it up on your other screen, then drag it over. Come on.
Well, that's what I've been doing.
Oh, all right, great. So that's our belief here. We did it with our cloud infrastructure as well. It's going to lock you out after a certain number of user attempts. It will unlock itself after a given time frame. That's going to stop someone from a brute force attack on the system.
And did you mention the activities?
Right, JT, sorry, thanks. I'll let you do that. The other thing that we wanted to do, and we have done in experimenting and messing around with iDMS, we've gone and tracked the number of people and the IDs that are locking themselves out. So we actually write an activity every time someone locks themselves out. Then you can make a really cool example where you've got you can actually create a chart of the IDs that are constantly locking themselves out. So back to that security concern thing, if I had a thing and I knew that ID 1234 was always locking itself out, then I would know, hey, wait a minute, there's something going on with that ID, and then I could go ahead and investigate it. So those are easy things to do as well. JT, I bet you it's because your Outlook's open and iEmails, you didn't hit save on that. You seem very calm for a guy whose iMIS isn't working. I'll just be honest with you. This is great.
Yes, I mean, it's not anything I can really do. So
close your browser and start over again.
I've done that.
Oh, great. Okay. Did you close Outlook?
No, I did not do that.
All right. Close Outlook. You probably have a pop-up somewhere.
Probably.
All right. Is your PowerPoint working?
I believe it is.
All right. Well, we'll go back to this in a minute.
Yes.
We'll get you the query for locking out. How's iDMS doing?
iDMS is working beautifully.
Right, beautiful. Woo. All right. Show us how to do this.
Yes. Once again, we're going to be using iUpdate. And if we simply select, we're just going to select that given IQA for the locked out users. And then all we're going to do, the mappings are relatively easy. All we're going to do is update the data. And we only need 2 mappings. So we'll use the user credentials source. The iMIS ID goes to the ID. We're going to match on that. We want to find the ID that is returned for that given IQA. And then the only other mapping we need is for unlock user account. We want that to be a true statement. And we'll hit save. From there, you're kind of all set. If you wanted to take it a step further, like Doug mentioned with activities, we could insert an activity as well. But we could just schedule it and then determine what frequency we want to have it be run on. So that is a quick kind of overview of how you would accomplish that within iDMS. And jumping back over to iMIS, this is what the IQA will look like.
Hey, you got it working.
Yes. So the source, we're just going to be using that user data business object. And then if we take a look at our filters, we obviously want those returned in the IQA to be the people that have locked themselves out. And then the display, technically you only need the ID, but you can have whatever fields you really want. And then if we run that, we'll notice that there are a handful of people. So we'd want to mark these usernames on a sheet of paper or on a separate screen, and we'd want to go in and unlock their account.
In last night's webinar, we had an iDMS job running. We still have it that automatically unlocks accounts. And so JT went to run that IQA and there were no results because iDMS was in the background automatically unlocking accounts. So I have to change that. JT, while you were messing around, here's what I did. Screenshotted what you just did.
Nice. All right. Well, there's some of the screenshots I just mentioned. So that user data and then the is locked out is yes. Doug, what is the last one?
Number 5. Okay. Start using Power Automate today. If you haven't heard of Power Automate, we're going to introduce you to it now. The good news is you probably already have Power Automate. It's included with almost every E version of Office as well as the 365 apps. So you can talk to your IT peeps and say, hey, do we have Power Automate? Can we turn it on? Okay, there's so much you can do with Power Automate, and it does, you already have it. Okay, Power Automate is a workflow tool. It is a no-code sort of thing. You can automate. It integrates with a whole bunch of AI stuff. We have a new person starting in a month, and she's got her own business, and she was already using Power Automate just to make her business work faster and better. She's not a computer person. She just said, there's this great tool out there. I already have it. So great. Okay, so that's what Power Automate kind of is. And there's some cool stuff you can do today with it. Here are some samples that are out there that you could start playing around with, right? This is just right off Microsoft's site. Get a push notification when you receive an email from your boss. That's kind of fun. You know, I love the Save Office 365 email attachments to OneDrive for Business. Go ahead and save your attachments out there. You could just, we have a slide that's not in this one. It's like, it's a whole bunch of Legos. Imagine you just dumped a whole bunch of Legos in front of you and you could build something. You can do so much with Power Automate. There is another link that we found out there on the web, this place. So JT's going to go ahead and click on that. And 7 handy things you can do with Power Automate. I love the scheduling meetings, creating quick reminders, the attachment one, automate your approval process. Who wants to stop emails? Bummer. Lots of fun things. Just go experiment with this. You should start experimenting with it. You have it. It's an incredible tool. Start using it because there's so much you can do with it. In fact, when you're ready, there's an iMIS Power Automate connector. So what does that mean? Well, if there's an iMIS Power Automate connector, and Power Automate talks to so many things, here's just an idea of all the things that there's 1,000 in there, right? So you could start integrating with SurveyMonkey if you wanted to, or we talked about OneDrive, but you could do Box. There's so many things it integrates. Some of these are free, some cost money, but there's so many different things you can do. One of JT's favorite things that he likes to do, and JT is our Power Automate guy at CSI. I mean, he is doing all sorts of fun stuff. And JT's not a programmer, it's just really, really cool. He's going, and his favorite thing is that we all get a Teams message whenever someone's doing an iMIS demo and a gift goes in over $500. Everybody at CSI gets a Teams message that a big gift has come in. That was a fun stuff. You could do a Teams message every time someone joined. All sorts of fun things you can do. But what we want to encourage you to do today is to start using this, start experimenting with it, see what's out there. You don't have to buy any connectors. You could just start learning about it. So add that to your list to do this Friday afternoon to find out if you have it. You probably do. And to start, I say playing around with it, but do whatever you want. All right, our last thing, right? We said 5, but we've got one more. Many of you on this webinar probably already know about the iMIS Experience Plus browser add-in. But if you don't, we're about to blow your mind. This came about when ASI had a hack day. I don't know if you've ever been on a sprint review where they say, well, we had hack days, and they said that let a programmer do whatever they wanted to. Dangerous, by the way. But they asked CSI and a whole bunch of other solution providers, have a hack day, build us something that'll blow our mind. And we won first and second place. Sorry, not bragging, just stating. And we decided to take the second place one and roll it out to the community at no charge. So our developer, Jake Berge, said, you know what? I hate that silly plus sign. When I'm writing SQL in an IQA, that's a pain in the butt. And I don't like IQA. I'm going to make it better. So how did he make it better? Let's look at this. You probably see your IQA looking like this. Jake can never leave well enough alone, right? So he made it pretty. So, all right, not bad, right? All right. I actually like that a lot more. So, all right, it looks a little better. Here is my biggest frustration with IQAs when I forget and I'm adding a filter and I forget that plus button. To me, that looks like the same color as everything else. It doesn't stand out. I hate it. Jake turned that into a commit button. You can't get off that row until you hit commit. I love that little add in there. So you've got to commit to that. Very cool. And now if you are writing SQL, and there was a question earlier, it was anonymous. It was like, hey, I thought SQL wasn't allowed in EMS. You can't use SQL to update data or edit data in iMIS, but you can use SQL in IQA. Here is what it looks like to get a date. JT, we should change that to the other date. But if you need to edit this, if you've ever done SQL editing in an IQA, it's a real pain in the butt. You got to copy it. You got to hit re-add it and do all this stuff. Well, what Jake did was he added an edit button. So you hit edit to that, and then you can go change your SQL expression down there and hit save or add. So really, really made this super easy. You want to know how to get it? Once again, it's free. And no, please don't ask about Firefox. Do not put that in the chat because they won't do it. Don't ask. Go to Chrome Web Store or Edge add-ons and look for iMIS. In Edge, there's 2 of them. I don't know why, but in Chrome, there's only 1. And you can actually make Chrome add-ins work in Edge as well. Just add that browser add-in. Try it out. If you love it, great. If you hate it, just turn it off. It doesn't mean anything. It's free. So it's our little gift. It's something you should be doing today, especially if you are writing a lot of IQAs. We used to always put this at the beginning of our webinars, and then we found out people weren't paying attention because they were going and downloading this and playing around with it. So by the end, they're like, I love this add-in. I'm like, wait, if you're playing with that add-in, you're not listening to our webinar. So we always do this at the end. So anybody want to throw something out there? You know, we're not brainiacs here, but what are some other things you think that everybody should be doing in iMIS? Throw it in the chat if you like. Or anything. We're always curious about what other things that everybody should be doing. And please don't say embracing AI, because man, I know it. I get it. And yes, we probably all should be doing that. But that's just the hot topic these days. If it was GDPR 3 years ago, now it's AI today. So anybody have an idea of like, oh, you know, what a great idea. We should be doing that or something like that. So feel free to put it in the chat. If not, that's fine. That means that, hey, we came up with some great stuff. So I don't see a whole lot added. So think about it if you want. Next up, we have a listserv. Our listserv is primarily around our products to get customers talking about it, but we wanted to put it in here because if you want to sign up for that listserv and then go ahead and post something that says, you know what, I thought about something we should all be doing. It's this. Other people will see it and go from there. So can I do some cool things without SQL if we are using iDMS? Yes, iDMS is the replacement for SQL in EMS. So, and to use Power Automate with iMIS, yes, you do need the CSI connector. We wrote that, ASI, we worked together with ASI to develop that. So, however, I'm going to just be totally straight here. You could use Power Automate with the iMIS data management suite. You could actually use Power Automate to do the web calls, the REST API calls as well. So no, you don't need the CSI connector. It certainly helps. We spent a lot of time making that easy, but no, you don't need that. That might get a little beyond no code, low code, but so start playing with Power Automate. The connector is great, but you may or may not need it. So please join our listserv, do anything there. All right, JT. Oh, I guess it's me. NIAG Discovery is coming to Chicago. There's a rumor of a big party in my backyard. That is false. Do not listen to that. I do not have that big of a backyard. But we will be there. It is in our quote backyard, as in it's at the Hyatt Regency O'Hare. JT and I will be there. It's in August, and it's right by O'Hare. So you land at O'Hare, you take a quick shuttle ride over, and you're at the hotel. It is going to be a great conference. We're super excited. And if you can't make that one, we've got a better option for you. The NIAG Asia Pacific one that's going to be in Melbourne this year on the 24th and 25th of October. So just take a short flight down to Melbourne, Australia. I will be there at that conference. We are all in on NIAG. We think NIAG is a great organization for all the users, very, very low cost for what you get. And hey, if you happen to be in Australia for this, I'd love to see you at this conference as well. But if the Chicago one's closer to you, and it probably is, please join us there. Whew, all right.
And Doug, it looks like John has a question in the Q&A.
All right, John, we have accounts being created that don't have a login. I noticed it's not possible to use iDMS to create a login, so you're going to be moving on that. If you've ever tried to create a login in iMIS for someone, it requires an email address. And so if that account has an email address, you can create logins with iDMS. In fact, if we were doing this webinar around iDMS, one of our top things we would be telling you is to create logins for your users. Now, John, if you're on 2017, the API doesn't exist for that. So unfortunately, you either have to use our older iImport or upgrade to EMS. So you might be on 2017. If you're on 2017, we cannot create logins because there's no API for it. We can do it with our legacy iImporter. EMS, we can create logins. That's one of JT's favorite things, to send a member and say, hey, we've created your login. It's your email address, the first four of your last name, and your member number, which came in a separate email. Now, some people might say, hey, wait, that could be hacked. And yes, it can. So you've got to just decide what you want. We think that if it makes it easy for people to log in, that's better. So this happens when a user creates an account for another person in their org. Oh, John, if you don't have an email address, we won't be able to do it. But if you shoot us an email at support at csiinc.com, which is the one thing I did actually take off from the, let's see, here we go. Oh, and David, thanks very much. David's pointing out you can make JT's unlock account even easier. You can just drop the link into that. So I'm going to go just say, everybody, John, feel free to email support at csiinc.com with a little more details, and we'll get you that solved as well. We have duplicate org records in EMS we've used before iMerge. Thinking iMerge compatible for organizations. ASI and I are in a fight about duplicate records in how they get merged for an organization. They want to move all of the activities that existed under the company to the new company, which I think is a good thing sometimes and a bad thing sometimes. Short story, you can merge org records using iDMS. It is a very simple update on the company ID. And it will merge all of the individuals attached to one record to the other. You could also go and create an IQA that would merge the data field. So you can use iDMS to merge company records. It's not as seamless as I would like it to be, but you certainly can do it. If you email support@csi.com, I'll shoot you over some ideas on how to do that until ASI adds it. I will tell you this, ASI is adding the ability to merge companies this year. Boy, I'm going to get in trouble for saying this year, but I'm positive they're doing it. In case you're not familiar, ASI's got some really, really powerful leadership now. Andrea Robertson is sort of their product owner, if you will. She is wonderful. She's making incredible changes. We are so excited about her and her team and the changes they're making with EMS. I think you're going to see some great stuff. We've already seen some amazing things with fundraising. That's big for us at CSI. We have a lot of fundraising clients, and we were stuck. We couldn't get clients to EMS because it was missing some features, and bam, they got it done. So I'm so excited about that.
All righty. I'm not seeing anything.
Go to the next one. I fixed the last slide, JT. Wait till you see it. So our email addresses are here. If you email sales@csi.com, it doesn't mean you want to buy something, but that goes to JT and I as well. So do not hesitate to email sales@csi.com. It'll go to both of us. If you want to, give me feedback on how JT is not very good at iMIS, in the demo, you can just email me privately at dmorris@csi. And if you want to give some feedback, which we got on the last webinar that I was apparently not being nice to JT, that was a private email to JT saying I didn't like the way Doug was talking about you. So choose what you want, or just email us both at sales@csi.com.
And then Doug, there's actually one. Michael stated something in the chat.
Yes, great question. You can yes. So EMS does not allow you to delete. In EMS, you mark a contact for erasure. That is their way of deleting records now. So what you do is, and you can do this if you have the data management suite, you can do it in mass, or you can just do it from the desktop. You have to mark it for erasure, and then a procedure runs, I think once a day, maybe twice, and it will go ahead and mark that record as erased, even though it's still there. I do not know if they're ever going to do that. All right, Beth, way to go. Built an IQA for users that are locked out. And then, yeah, on that IQA, go and use the stuff that who told us that cool stuff on how to do that? David, thanks. Yeah, use David's little link, put that in there, and you can click right on it and go to the IQA. So I'm sorry, to the user's record. So a little quick thing to run once a day or assign someone to do. Beth, go ahead and make Melissa do that every day. Say, hey, Melissa, I've got a great job for you. That'll be funny. Not funny to Melissa, but funny to us.
All righty. Well, thank you everyone for joining us for the 6 best practices and some things you must be doing today with iMIS. Once again, like Doug mentioned, if you do need to reach us, our contact information is there. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out.
Thanks, everyone.